number. And obviously, the next few slides, just very quickly to highlight something which I've already mentioned. 8 years after 2008-2009, the financial meltdown, the global crisis should usually be over. But unfortunately, you could say yes, there has been some developments, but I'm not so sure whether we are completely out of it or we are learning the lessons. So that is why I'm sort of, not a warning, but highlighting the fact that the global situation will come back even for Nigeria. So be aware that these things you need to bear in mind when you're doing your analysis in the future. So what I'm saying here, the expectation that all parties have done enough since 2008 to deal with unprecedented crisis. And who are they? Usually, who deals with the international crisis? Obviously, individual countries, but also as a group, we call them the international community. Okay, we call them like that, but there are countries there. And if you've been hearing, I'm sure you've been listening to the news. There is a meeting today, a group meeting today. I think it's today. I didn't check it, but if my calendar is correct, there must have been a G20 meeting that is starting around, and it should be around China, I think. I haven't read it this morning, but this is what we call the international community. You have the G7, G8, the G20, you have the World Bank meeting in their spring meeting, you have the World Bank and IMF meeting in the October meeting, they call them annual meetings, etc., etc. And that's where, and then obviously the finance ministers meeting, all those meetings, but also internationally there are a number of those organizations that are taking decisions that are going to affect you. So there are those big that I've just mentioned. You also have the African Development Bank, and as you know, the Nigerian president took over recently. I hope you know him. He's a well-known figure. Anyway, so and that's also something that we need to look at. I saw a document that was sent to me from the ADB about the country strategy paper, because they're doing some very good work. The ADB itself has actually improved its quality of people and its quality of analysis. So it's sometimes good to look at them because they are your bank, basically. And you are not only a bank that advises you, but you're also the owner of one of the accounts. You know what am I talking about?
You contribute.
Yes, you always contribute, but you're the owner of one account. Which account is it? You means Nigeria, not you. Not your bank account I'm talking about. Nigeria. No? If I'm not mistaken, there must have been something called Nigerian Trust Fund.
Okay.
And it's been managed by the ADB, I believe. It's not by one issue. You can check that for me. Nigerian Trust Fund. And it's a social insurance trust fund. Yeah. You know when you have the ADB, the ADF, and then there's a third window which is called Nigerian Trust Fund. So it's there. So you have two sides of it. One is as a contributor, but also as a recipient of technical assistance and whatever else. So there must be a lot of assistance or some assistance that you get which has been defined under the country strategy paper. The reason I'm talking about those big institutions, those so-called big institutions, multilateral development institutions, because they are already sometimes doing your job. You know, and it's sometimes good to look at what they are saying in the same way that I mentioned it this morning. Not only the World Bank, not only the IMF, but also the ADB, they happen to be around, and they may have even an office in Abuja somewhere, monitoring and talking to individual countries, individual departments, agriculture, funding. Even they are giving big boost to PPP, to infrastructure. You might have heard it said that Africa 50. So there may be something there that you may wish to look at in terms of when you're looking at the infrastructure gap. So which I'm sure your counterpart are already looking. So yes, we need more infrastructure development, but who's going to fund that? Right? So this is something that we may be looking at in case you find something when you're analyzing your, I'm talking about next week, not next week, 15 days from now, the sectoral analysis. So if you're doing that type of analysis, just be aware that there are people out there who are willing to assist. Or maybe they're already assisting. So international community, they also were there to help with the financial crisis. And we'll look a little bit about what they've done. Individually to your own countries, but also internationally, what have they set up. Okay? But then I'm arguing that it's not completely over because there are still some crises. Uncertainty and threat to global slowdown still there. Other factors have cropped up, but symptoms from crisis remain. So it's very surprising to see that we are still talking about the crisis 8 years from when it started. But that's because it was so massive, it was so huge. That's why we're still talking about it. And to some extent, the student of economics are probably enjoying it in a purpose way. Nobody enjoys crisis, but they might be enjoying it because they're testing their theory, trying to see what is working and what has not worked. And maybe they're coming up with new theories now. In fact, there are people who are coming up with new theories. We are talking about macroeconomic. The IMF themselves have said our macroeconomic policy, our macroeconomic framework has not worked during the crisis. So everything that I'm telling you now, as if I'm throwing it through the window, no, I'm not. But I'm saying that the framework as it is has not worked. So they have something I would suggest, or I will give it, I'll put it on your memories, not memories, on the website. Or I might give it to you if you want. Send me, if I get your email, I'll send it to you, Mr. Consider. There's a nice paper, which you may have already seen. It's called Rethinking. Oh, we need to get somebody to fix that and write on that. Rethinking. So the PPP I'm talking about, so it's not your PPP or what? I'm afraid it's not fall down. PPP. But you also have something called the Economist. Sorry. The Big Mac is considered
Petrol. Can it be used
well.
for PPP?
They can. I think the reason why they went for Big Mac, I think you can use anything. In fact, they are already under the purchasing power parity. That's what they're doing. In fact, they're looking at the value, whatever you're producing on a PPP basis, instead of looking at your GNP, which is your national product, or your GNI, gross national income, or your GDP, which is, we will look at that I think tomorrow, the different methods of calculating. So the PPP is already using those methods. But I was just trying to simplify it for you, so why not? But you're right. There are so many other products which you can use. But the idea of Big Mac, the economists argue that because it is easily available. So it's, you know what is the price. Everybody knows what is the price of a Big Mac in Nigeria. They will not be changing normally, usually. You wouldn't see, except when it is like the market is going down, they might give you some rebate. But most of the time, you would know how much naira a Big Mac would cost. So they would be able, the reason, because they are computing it from London, or they don't want to make estimates about what is the price of oil, what is the price of that. Because you could do that as well. But they are looking at the price of this Big Mac around the world. But I agree with you. You can use any product. Okay, so timid recovery, Brexit, prospects of growth without job. The other thing I'm talking about here now is growth with no job, with little job creation. Is that something you would like?
Yeah.
Huh? Who likes it? I heard somebody say yes. You said yes too quickly.
We've recorded a series of that, I think.
Yes.
In the last, about 6 years or 5 years.
Really?
Yeah, they said the GDP grew at about 6-7%. There are no jobs created.
And that's alarming. So this means that the economic policy, the economic strategy must be looked at a bit more closely to understand the linkages or the lack of linkages between employment through the normal channel of growth, which then raised a question, because I was raising it from a point of view of a phenomenon that is pretty popular without realizing that you also witnessed that, because this is something that is happening as we speak in many countries, and they have projected that even the developed world, they will not get a period of high growth rate in the same way that they were doing it. Except US has some few times sort of gone out of the normal trend, in the sense that they were still creating a bit of jobs. But then they also, by their own standard, when you see the employment figure coming, it's not as great. So then, like I said, this raises a lot of questions. In the developed world, you're going to see now people like Trump, people like Le Pen in France, and other people and other small parties that are becoming important in Europe. They are now, remember I was telling you about that globalization is very good. It's good because it has shown to be good. Because you're growing, but then when you trade, when you move capital around, capital comes to your country, that means you can grow a lot more, faster, you don't have to rely on your savings. So this is the benefit of globalization. And then obviously if you're able to bring technology with you, when they come, they bring technology. They don't bring market, they bring technology, they bring know-how, you are able to produce cars, able to produce some other things. So IT department grows, so employment, all that creates employment. But unfortunately what is happening now, a lot of countries now are thinking that globalization is the reason why growth is not going faster. Or growth without employment is creating that. They are saying that, very good example, very popular example, the US is a producer of iPhone, like you know. I'm not sure if I do a survey now how many people have iPhone, but every time I've said that, I know a lot of people have iPhone. I don't know whether iPhone has come to Nigeria. False. But Samsung probably is there as well. But talking about iPhone is that all this iPhone is not being produced in the US. They are putting up together, the technology is coming from the US. Technically you would say it's owned by Apple, which is incorporated in the US. But then their production is being done by labor, cheap labor in China. And that is why you see the sometimes leakages coming from there about the new version 7 or whatever it is. So it's a good example to tell you that people like Trump now are saying globalization is bad. So we should close our borders. So that's what he said, basically. Close the borders, we know what? We want jobs for us. We don't want to go and take enough lives out of people. But luckily there are not many people thinking like that. But
we say without creation of jobs, it might be more like the issue of we in the rebasing of the Nigerian GDP in relation to our own economic with South Africa, which we say was the biggest economy in Africa. But is this more of services that we now tend to lean on? So it's more like the telecommunication company, which are not capture. I mean, they don't create so much job. Some of them even had to re-evaluate their business plan. They make more money. They bring more money as into investment. But the labor force was reduced because most of them now had to outsource their workforce to other companies that came in. Instead of maybe those that they pay more to, they end up bringing those that they were paying much little amount. So it now becomes not manufacturing as it is, but services which pay maybe a chunk money, investment coming to us by somebody, people move out money, and you say you have a large income, but people are losing job and some others are having so much fat.
Yeah, I would entirely agree with you on that factor. Because this is what I was talking about. One needs to analyze, for example, what are the contribution of different sectors, and then look at, for instance, whether the nature of the services industry is that a lot of outsourcing is taking place. You understand outsourcing, right? So a lot of those business transactions are taking place abroad. But I would not necessarily, it's possible on the first point in terms of the rebasing. The rebasing is a scientific, statistical way of doing it. You're rebasing it in order to reflect sometimes the reality. Because when you have an index, which is like, I don't know, before your rebasing, you were talking about 1982 or I don't know when, is equal to 100. You know, so you are rebasing in order to take into account the new change in economic structure. But in itself, it's not necessarily directly the impact on employment, but it would be those factors, the factors that you mentioned. And this one, I 100% agree with you, right? Because just the rebasing is just a statistical thing. Because sometimes when you, like in Ghana, they did it because they discovered oil, so they wanted to do it. But also sometimes an index needs to be moved forward. So sometimes you do rebasing without any really genuine reason. You just want to bring it down to current prices. So let's start from today. So at 2016 prices, so then 2016 become 100. You know the concept of index, right? So then you have an index. Instead of your index starting like 1980 equal to 100, so you're coming to 2016, you make 2016 is equal to 100, right? So, and at the same time, then you look at the structure. So then you start again. So then when you're doing the deflator, you're looking at from 2016 onwards. So these rebasing sometimes give you a bigger cake. Why am I trying to say here, right? So we're still in.
Yeah, so government felt the only way is to let it flow. And then if you look at the jump also, it's not really much compared to that official rate with the other bank rates before the flotation.
So sometimes you will see government is compelled to actually do that because they're realizing that they are not influencing what they were supposed to influence.
A lot of people were just sitting there making billions. You get forex at 197, you sell it up, you know, $1 million 197, and then the next thing you've gotten 350 million naira without doing anything. So,
and that is not supposed to be economic policy. Yes. No, economic policy was supposed to create some stability or reduce volatility. If that was the reason, I suspect the reason why the government brought in was to reduce that volatility and create some, you know, words like volatility is not good, right?
Last but one fact, two facts.
Yes.
There was an increase in
Yes.
what was in the port.
Yes.
Simply because of that flotation. You see that difference now between 197 was a kind of additional revenue.
Yes.
It was shared to states and
Yes.
governments. Yeah.
Yes. So what I'm saying, sir, is since we have our own macroeconomic indicators before the MTEF, you approved, you allow it at 197, and now you have a huge difference from the same forex, and you are immediately sharing it.
Yeah, but what you are saying, I think what you wanted to ask is in what way is it going to affect the implementation of the budget? And if you look at it, the budget was predicated on 38 certain kind of fiscal items.
Yes.
$38, kind of a barrel, 197. Now government has more money, that's sort of it. But as long as it's not appropriated, government cannot expend that money. So, despite the fact that it has been shared, it's revenue coming in. And the government has a way of saving that additional revenue. You get what I'm saying? And then the other way you look at it also is when you look at the, kind of slowdown in the global energy market itself, and you look at militancy in the Niger Delta,
Yes.
production has gone down by about 900 and something thousand barrels.
Yes.
You understand? So when you aggregate, you look at it, what you have saved through the exchange rate differential, you understand, may have been taken over by the reduction in the production of oil.
I agree, sir. But what I'm saying is,
So it's like
the
balancing-
does Parliament have the right to say, no? Because this is what's out of the budget, and you are argumenting the budget, and it's not part of the financing items of the deficit.
The answer to that is go back to the CBN Act. Exchange rate, kind of policy is strictly the domain of CBN.
It is.
Yeah, it is. The Parliament does not interfere.
Sorry, sir. In addition to that, sir, actually, it's the other time you said you were going to give us some small paper that we're going to. Right. I jotted something down that I wanted you to look at maybe later. I was asking that to what extent does the current juggling of monetary policies by the CBN, to what extent can it affect our macroeconomics? I wanted to judge that on the this thing that you were. So I think I can just chip it in when this same topic is going on.
Yeah. I think these are, if you've heard the conversation between our two colleagues about, and I think everything that has been mentioned there are issues that goes into your analysis. And I would normally like to have this conversation a bit later when we do the monetary sector and the monetary policy. But let me comment generally about it. The reason why I've actually raised it, you see the foreign exchange market, is because foreign exchange market or forex or exchange rate for the country, whether it is a fixed rate or is a variable rate, it has an impact. So it goes back to some extent. Because the market, the moment the market has made up the mind, it will go on. And the parallel market is going to create. So in the case like you were mentioning here, the official rate was 197, but then the other rate was whatever it was going on. So then suddenly you realize that a group of people are taking advantage of the market and making loads of money. And this is not what the government wanted.
That is what is happening.
Yes. So unfortunately, this is the downside of policy low.
That rate has reduced.
Okay, in terms of timing, because I've lost
398.
Is it still time, eh?
Is the gap that
What time was I going to break?
6? You understand what I'm saying?
No, we're breaking 4.
6. Quarter to 4. 6.
No, we have a fourth session as well. We're breaking quarter to 4. So what time do you need to break? 4 o'clock?
Yeah, 4.
4?
It's okay. 4 is fine.
4 o'clock. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so you're getting an idea about this international market. So let's talk the foreign exchange now. When we do the section on, we'll come back to that. Because, then you'll be able to appreciate the depreciation from a non-political. Because I was saying that we were getting into politics. I was trying to go out of it. Property. Is renting the biggest aspiration of people, or is ownership the biggest aspiration? Most countries you find out everyone wants to own a house, a flat, something, right? And then obviously if you can't, then you rent. And then sometimes some countries you have what they call mixed, partial ownership, if the financial market come up with those products. But I'm not sure whether you have it here, but let's talk about renting market, obviously that ownership. So what happened in the US there was, and that happened around the time when Clinton was still president there. And the economy was, there was a boom, there were everything going up, shares, commodity prices, GDP growth, internationally, everybody was smiling, was happy. Clinton was always smiling anyway, so, and so, for whatever reason, I don't know, but he was always jolly optimistic. So there was some enthusiasm. So One day he said in one of his speeches, good speeches, he said, well, I urge the financial sector, do something for those people. We are enjoying a good time. Why don't you allow more people to own their own houses? Do something about it, because ownership is still a good thing. So then the commercial world, the financial sector said, no, Clinton is saying, change the rule, be a bit more positive. So they took that to the letter. Usually the bank is not allowed to give, they have to do credit assessments. You have to assess the credit ratings individually. You can't go and get a loan yourself, you know. So they were going to look at your capacity to repay, how much your salary, how much amount that you're going to get, you know, the usual thing. And then what happened is that in the mortgage market there, because they were talking about there's plenty of money, and also there was plenty of money anyway. So the commercial banks, I don't know whether anybody has shares in commercial banks, but let me tell you, commercial banks would never like their money to remain idle. For them, that's loss of opportunity. This is why you will see that in the 1980s, a lot of commercial banks came to Africa because they had a lot of money, what I call the petrodollars. You know the petrodollars in the 1980s? The price of oil going up, loads of money in commercial banks. And they came to every country in Africa. They wanted to give them money. And a lot of poor countries didn't realize the implications of borrowing from them. They gave them variable rate interest at 1%. People are saying, well, 1%, my God, this is real bonanza. Let me take it. But what they did not read, nowadays people read the loan agreement, but at that time they didn't read it that much. So, oh, that's very good, 1%. 1%? But then what they didn't realize is that those commercial banks, they broke their own rule of quality control. And they actually gave the money to a lot of our countries, not need to mention the names, right? Lots of countries. And that also should be a question. Why is inflation going up? There could be a number of reasons. It could be because of the real sector, because there's lack of production, there's something like that. It could be government policy because interest rates going up or whatever it is. It could be some other things. Interest rate has a two-way side. When it goes up, it can reduce the value of money supply. We'll come to that later. But you should be asking the question. Let me rest my case here and then come back at 15 minutes. Yeah, or 10 minutes. Okay. So this is probably okay to expect. But what would not be okay is that if the fiscal deficit is deteriorating, if the leeway that you have when the economy is doing well, you are keeping to borrow more. That would mean that in bad times, you can't borrow more. The whole idea of fiscal policy is that when there is a crisis, if you go, I'm not going to theory now, but I have to use that. Keynesian economics. If those of you still remember, remember the Keynesian economics, when they say that, usually you can give a boost to an economy when the other factors are not working. So for example, if the private sector is not able to generate growth, the government can use fiscal policy to improve expenditure. So by improving expenditure, by increasing expenditure, you're providing more resources in population's hand. And by creating that sort of injection of money, hopefully they're going to go and buy the goods. They're not going to keep that money under the mattress. So when they buy the goods, this means the producer is going to get, and demand increases. When demand increases, this means production increases. And production increases, this means the economy gradually gets back into a normal, healthy situation. So you get out of the situation. But then when I say you don't have fiscal space, this means that you have been borrowing too much, even in good times. Which means then you can't go and borrow unnecessarily. When you're breaking your own rule, you may have some fiscal and debt rule. You can't go and borrow because the IMF or somebody else might have told you not to borrow. And thirdly, most importantly, you can't go and borrow continuously because the market is going to penalize you. How? That's precisely what happened. So there are many factors there. So a lot of countries got into that trouble. And when I say penalize you, what I mean? By forcing you to pay a higher rate of interest in order to get the same amount of money to fund the deficit. And that is a vicious circle of which we don't want to be. And that is all because you do not have enough fiscal space. That's what I meant by having sufficient leeway within your system to allow you to take those actions. Because these are enforcing situations. It could be, like I said, a general crisis. You know? And luckily, when I'm talking about the financial crisis here, the general conclusion was Africa was the continent that was the best prepared. Generally, not all of them, but generally the best prepared in terms of reacting to the crisis, financial crisis, in the 2008. That was why, because a lot of countries were already implementing fiscal improvement in their own economies. And also not to mention that the debt issue. Remember the HIPIC? Nigeria is not HIPIC, but talking about the other countries, 44 countries. The HIPIC, and so there were a lot of improvement in the economic management of those countries. So which meant that they had enough leeway at that time. Contrary to normally when there's a crisis, what do we say? Africa is the first country, first continent that's going to suffer. But there were a little bit more leeway. Okay? Generally, like I said, when I was looking at Tanzania and other countries, they had a little bit more leeway. So it's not always bad news. But for me, the theory is that fiscal space. And I've given you that story about how the fiscal space works. You know, the Keynesian economics of boosting money, putting more money into the economy may not work because you don't have the money. But you need to find the money to invest. And normally what you would do what every economy or most economies in Europe and others have been doing during the crisis. They have been putting money in the economy by generating, because they have means of generating money. And also, let me finish that story here, by also using the central bank to do something about it. What was it? Interest rate would usually be low when there is a crisis because you're trying to boost up the economy, you're trying to give a motivation for people to go and invest, etc. But what else? The new thing that came out a little bit was, I'm going to introduce it later, but I can mention to you, is the QE. You've heard of it?
Quantitative easing.
Quantitative easing. Right? So they did that. I'm not sure what you're laughing, so we'll talk about quantitative easing when I'm doing again the monetary sector. But that's what they did, right? And you see that America, everyone, each one of them did. So basically, going and taking. It's a form of printing money, but high. It's sort of the bonds that are held by the commercial private sector. So by taking the bonds, they're releasing money. So every time they're buying an asset, what are you doing? You're releasing money. So the money supply is going up. It's going up, it's going up, it's going up, it's going up. So you provide liquidity in the market with the hope that more liquidity will force the bank to lend more to them, because as I said, commercial banks never like to keep money idle. So if they're getting more money, they're not going to keep that in reserves. They're going to generate dividends. But unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. The QE was what it was to do. So that's something. In my Nigerian market, what is happening to the liquidity? Is liquidity being affected? Because liquidity is important. Liquid, like cash, is important for business. And liquid and cash is equally important for the government. This is why sometimes people talk about debt management. I say, well, before you talk about debt management, you should be talking about cash management. What is the cash management situation in Nigeria? Do you forecast for cash well enough so that you're able to know, project how much money you have, where's the money? That's one side of it. The second side is, do you know how much idle cash you have? When I was working with Nigeria, for a number of years, I was hearing the concept of GFEMIS, then it came to IFEMIS, then it came back to GFEMIS again. So I don't know what it is now. So that is one, and the second one was TSA, the Treasury Single Account. These Treasury Single Account, Integrated Financial Management System, are very useful tools to manage blockage in the economy, in the system, Treasury, Department, Planning, line ministries, all the bits and pieces that we do. And the TSA, I'm not here to talk about TSA a lot this week, but just be aware that the cash management, if you have a Treasury Single Account, you have it now, you already have it now. So if that works very well, then suddenly you are able to know that there is no idle cash sitting somewhere. So government don't have to borrow cash that it doesn't need, because it knows that there's idle cash already somewhere sitting. Because in the old days what was happening, government would have about, in one particular time, they would have probably 8 to 10,000 accounts. And those accounts are not talking to each other. So at the end of the day, you don't know what is in net terms and how much of cash you have. If you don't know how much cash you have, how do you know what to do with the cash? So next time you're short of cash, what do you say? DRO, borrow something from me. Or central bank, borrow something from me using commercial paper or treasury bills. Okay? So that's the type of thing, liquidity you should be looking at. You got that message? Yeah? The real economy obviously now, recession. Yes, is it generating something in your own economy? It did. The mortgage crisis, look, the mortgage crisis has created so many crises, right? So many problems, because it's linked, right? It led to recession, unemployment, lack of credit, loss of wealth. How? Loss of wealth? People becoming less wealthy. Yes. Their share prices have gone down, they've lost their job, their property, they're gone. Some of them have lost their house, etc. So 3 years later, after the market has quieted, then they did their analysis. The financial advisor, I think it was Barclays Capital was the advisor. They actually then told them, yes, you can go to the market. And I think they got a pretty good deal at that time. Unfortunately, a little bit, but we'll talk about that on week 3, right? But to tell you then that sometimes you have to take a decision. Don't blindly, because you've already put that in your budget. Next year, I'm going to do this. That's fine.
It's programmed.
It's programmed, this means it's sacred, it's sacrosanct. No, you should always be questioning. There's nothing that is cast in stone, because the circumstances have changed. So you should be bold enough as an analyst to tell whoever that, have you evaluated the impact of this recent problem? It's a good question for parliamentarians to ask. It's a simple question. Have you? If they come back to you and say, yes, I have, and you still want to go ahead, yes, I want to go ahead. But at least you have raised the question. Are you getting the point? You raise the question so that you say, well, I think there's a problem here. You should take that into account. And then if they don't, they agree that they've taken it, so fine. Okay, so you can see here all the other, let me move on. And at that time, I don't have the exact statistics for Nigeria, but generally, I'm looking at generally here, the amount of money, private capital flows that actually went to the developing world, including countries like Nigeria, actually went down. Because there was, as I said, there was no money, basically, and it went down dramatically, right? And you can see all those statistics there. So always have to look at, sometimes when you're doing your forecast, how much money, how this budget is going to be financed, especially when it says going to be foreign finance. Scrutinize that. How is that going to impact if there is a crisis, or if there is a uncertainty? Are you sure that this is not going to add more cost to your financing? Because budget is about financing, right? It's always about borrowing. This is some statistics for you to look at. These are all statistics about what happens. Equity prices, bond prices. Now, bond spread. Let me ask you a simple question. When was the last time you've been looking at the the price of Nigerian bonds, the whole bond. When was the last time you did some analysis? Whether it's going up, whether it's going down. Not scientific analysis like today, but just to be aware. Is it a good sign to go back to the market? Because sometimes when the price in the yield is moving dodgily, this will tell you that something is not correct about the Nigerian economy. Because then the cost of borrowing is going up. So that's what your bond is actually being traded in the secondary market. You know what is secondary market? And it could be London, it could be New York. I try to remember when you do the third week deck. But there, your bond, they will tell you what was the price it was issued in 2011, but then they will tell you what price is it economically available. The public certification. Oh, you mean the level? Yeah, the level, yeah. These are the GDP. A ballpark figure, I think I quoted somewhere in one of those slides, is that when you look at your analysis, the first assumption I'm going to make is that the HIPIC criteria is not working. So never try to use the HIPIC IMF criteria. The second point I'm going to say before I tell you my own feeling about the figure is the dynamic indicator I was talking about. Look at the pace at which your rate of debt to GDP is growing. If it is growing too fast, that's also bad. Now, the third one is a rule of thumb, but also some analysis. Some analysis was done about a few years ago by the IMF. They've taken about a sample of 50 to 60 countries. They've come to the conclusion that fiscal policy will not work, meaning using expenditure and tax policy, fiscal policy will not work if your debt to GDP goes over 50%. So your policy may not even work.
Sorry, say that again.
Fiscal policy as an instrument for you to impact expenditure and tax will work less effectively once you reach the threshold of the debt to GDP. I'm not saying 50% is a threshold, but I'm giving you those analysis because you are getting into that sort of trouble. Right? Because in the case of Nigeria, what happened is that because your debt went down from 34 to 4 billion, now it was like debt to GDP is not a problem. Debt service is not a problem. And then you started borrowing locally. Okay. Now that was an open window. You can score goal, like Nigeria scoring goal in the final. You can go as many goals, no impact. Because you're down on international banks here. Barclays and the like, right? HSBC, and others. So, yes, so those type of banks. So that's number 2. And then the third one is foreign investors into your domestic bonds. So I've given 3 examples of how the international financial system can affect Nigeria. So I'm going to pose a question to you and then we can discuss that when we do the financial sector. I don't know whether it's going to be Thursday or Wednesday. So let's discuss that and see. By which time then we will have covered all the accounts, the GDP accounts, the groceries, etc. So if you can put a note into your slide, I don't know which number it is. So want to have a discussion. Could be a case study. Let's have the discussion. Maybe find out from your office or from your colleagues or whatever it is, and let's discuss it. How those retransmission channels can technically affect you, your own financial sector. Like I've explained here, more generically, right? Impact on quality of assets, risk of non-performing loans growing in local portfolio, global credit squeeze, reducing capital to business investment, effect on trade credits. You know, if you're in the area of business or if you know about business, trade is the like the oxygen for business, trade credits. Everybody needs that. They need that. And suddenly you find that trade credits can't be given by those banks because the assets have been been contaminated by why? Because of their assets linked to some foreign accounts, foreign banks, etc., which has happened. So, and obviously impact on international borrowing by firms and sovereigns, widening of sovereign bond spreads, which is not very good, especially if you as Nigeria has decided to go back again to the market in the future. So now suddenly you find the spreads are going up. So which means your cost of borrowing is going to go up. Like it happened to Ghana. Ghana now, I was very surprised. I was meeting them by chance. That time one of my happens, when I go to the World Bank meeting, we try to be, I did the Nigerian delegation as well there. But so on the Ghanaians, no secret, no confidential thing there. But then just I was talking to them, and by coincidence I just read in the morning about their bond being issued. So I was quite surprised, but they were just got an IMF program. And the moment you bring the IMF to bail you out, we're in deep trouble. The signs are that you're going to pay a premium. You have to pay a premium when you're doing something wrong. So the market is always going to ask for a higher price when they want to lend you money. Have you not heard the story on a personal level when people are in deep trouble? They go to this corner, what do you call it? You know, this corner,
Loan shark.
yes. Yeah. And they move around. But if you have, your debt is low, if you're able to do what you want now, so you are able to go and borrow and invest into your market, into the economy. I don't know whether this has happened in Nigeria. I remember in many countries where there is a crisis, the government even can allow to create what I call artificial jobs. I've seen people creating jobs to go and clean the street, to weed out basically do some jobs, environment and some work like that. So basically, yeah, so create some form of employment, which is not going to be there forever. Yes, just to give them the money for them to spend. The same Keynesian model. So more money, expenditure in order to prop up the economy. One is the people are getting employed because unemployment is high, but then you actually create that type of demand. So sometimes it works. It's not productive 100%, but sometimes you want to give a boost to the economy. Having said about Keynesian, those of you who follow a little bit about economics, you will tell me that a lot of people believe that Keynes is dead. Of course he's dead, but this Keynesian model is not working. But a lot of people would disagree with that. But a lot believe that the UK and other countries should have used more Keynesian, because UK didn't do that. UK started to reduce the deficit in the middle of the crisis. So basically saying that you are in a hole, keep digging. What happened when you're digging when you're in a hole? So that's what they say UK was doing. Fiscal space. Do you agree? We can come back to that again, but I think the amount of discussion we've done today, maybe you are seeing what I mean. So you need a bit of fiscal space for economy to react to situations where pressure on borrowing mount or pressure on fiscal. So you can't do fiscal boost when you're already high level of borrowing. Okay? During crisis again here, those countries that rely on commodity exports, large current account deficits, large stock of debt, they are more vulnerable. So again, you should not have that type of situation. So what I'm saying here, you need to have sound public financial management policies. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about a bit of public financial management. You're going to see what I mean by that. It's within the budget, and budget is within public financial management, but I'm going to mention and how you need to do the overall. Third one is a heavy exposure to a particular market or instrument. That's also dangerous. Don't put all your money in one basket. Like I was talking about the pension fund, but also government also should be able to diversify as much as it can. You cannot rely always, and the reality is that you have oil, but the diversification in terms of your investment, in terms of your exports, in terms of your markets. So try to see whether there is enough policy in your Vision 2020, in your medium-term strategy about whether diversification is just a theoretical concept or is it going to happen? And what can be done to diversify? Okay, so diversification is important. Have risk models been effective in evaluating exposure and counterparty risk? Has self-regulation been effective? Too much risk taken. So this is, for me, if I was working in NABRO, I would have a section, invisible section, or not invisible, default section, called risk management. I would have that. I'm not NABRO, so I do not have it. But why I would say that? Because I would put my head as a risk. I would question risk in any sector. Has risk management been taken care of? The risk to this, the risk to that, risk to that, the risk around everything we do. So I would ask those questions, whether there is enough leeway in terms of defending, of taking potential risk to the export, risk to the GDP, risk to the financial market, etc. So risk management is very important. Right? And I think nowadays everybody is agreeing that risk management needs to be done. It's the same way that M&E is very much accepted now. Everybody wants M&E to happen. You need to control, you need to monitor and evaluate in order to see whether you're on the right track. And this is what M&E is about. You don't want to wait for the project to end completely and then to say, oh my, we knew that the project was not running very well in year 3. What did you do? Oh, but we didn't have any system, so we didn't know. So now we know that M&E is a continuous assessment of finding out whether you can fine-tune the project or fine-tune economic policy. Okay? This is why government needs M&E as well, everywhere. Few more things. Banking crisis. Has it led to other crises? So again here, I know you may not or may, when you come to the monetary sector, I'll talk about that. But this is something that if you're not doing, please spend more time in trying to understand, or at least ask somebody to come and answer those questions. It's not because it's under the remit of the central bank, you should not be doing it. So you should be able to ask those questions about the financial soundness of the whole sector. Don't rely only on the central bank. They are independent maybe, they are doing a good job, no doubt, but you can ask the right questions because you can also, your job is to have sound monetary and fiscal policy, both of them, that's all. And the soundness of the financial sector is
model. Because I think so far they have committed, I'm not sure, but between 500 to 600 million dollars. Can it be, kind of looked at as a contingent, kind of liability? What is it?
I'll introduce, because I haven't yet put it on the fiscal. I'll come back to that and I will show you that PPP infrastructure project, the biggest danger of treating it outside the budget, which normally it is, because you're bringing a lot of private sector money there. But what is not sometimes recognized is that government has made some commitments. But because those commitments are longer than 1 year, it's not registered within your budget. So I'm not talking about probably what you're saying in terms of creating a structure outside the budget. The moment I hear about this type of news, then for me, alarm bells start ringing, because without knowing that particular case. In the UK, for instance, talking about they are the expert in PPP, 20 years now. Initially, the UK was doing PPP. Your objective and expectation. So, would you mind doing that? I think I would like to see that, and then we can ask questions about that.